The hike started like any other, quiet, peaceful, until I spotted something strange near the trail. It wasn't just unusual, it was unsettling. I couldn't tell if it was injured or simply resting, but as I inched closer, the sight made my stomach flip. When the park ranger arrived, he froze, his face turning ashen. He radioed for backup, his voice shaky. That's when I knew this wasn't just any creature, it was something far more terrifying. The sun was shining bright as I set off on the trail, and my spirits were high. Birds chirped in the trees above, and I could feel the warmth on my face through the leaves. Everything seemed just right. This is going to be great, I thought. The rhythm of my footsteps on the path was comforting, and I couldn't help but smile as I walked. It was one of those mornings where everything felt good. But then, something caught my eye. Off to the side, near the bushes, lay something that didn't belong. It looked like an animal, but I couldn't tell what kind. Its body was hunched and it didn't move. I squinted, trying to make sense of it. "Hey Lisa, do you see that?" I called over my shoulder. We both stepped closer, eyes wide as we tried to figure out what we were seeing. Lisa, always the braver one, edged forward while I hung back a bit. "What do you think it is?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Her fingers trembled just a little as she pointed toward the creature's face, curiosity mixed with caution. I watched her closely, not sure if I should join her or just stay where I was. She peered a bit closer, trying to catch any detail that might explain what it was. As I watched, the creature's peculiar pink snout twitched suddenly. I jumped back, my heart skipped a beat. "Did you see that?" I exclaimed, gripping my hiking stick a little tighter. Lisa nodded, eyes wide. "Yeah, it moved," she confirmed, voice shaking slightly. The unexpected twitch made both of us uneasy. Until that point, it seemed like the animal might be hurt, or worse. Now, it was clear that it wasn't as lifeless as we first thought. Not far from us, another couple of hikers stood frozen, staring at the creature. The woman clutched her partner's arm, gasping. "Come on, let's go," she urged, pulling him away. Their footsteps quickly faded, replaced by the soft rustling of leaves as they rounded a bend in the trail. Watching them hurry off, I wondered what they thought the creature was. The atmosphere around us grew a little tense, the air feeling thicker somehow. Out of nowhere, Ranger Blake stepped from behind a tree, his presence surprising us both. His expression was serious, and he scanned the area, eyes narrowing as they landed on the creature. "What's going on here?" he asked, concern lacing his voice. I gestured toward the strange figure, hoping he might know more. Blake examined the scene quietly for a moment, his brow furrowed with thought. The sight clearly had him troubled. Blake raised his hand, motioning for us to step back. "Stay behind me," he instructed firmly, moving forward with care. We complied, watching intently as he moved closer to the curious creature, keeping a safe distance as he could. "Have you seen anything like this before?" Lisa asked, voicing the question we both had. Blake shook his head, his gaze still locked on the creature lying before him, evident caution in his movements. The silence around us grew as we all watched the scene unfold. I held my breath, anticipation hanging in the air. Blake's radio buzzed to life, breaking the quiet, and he quickly informed the main office of his findings. "We're going to need some backup out here. This is unusual." His voice crackled over the airwaves, hinting at the urgency of the situation. It was clear that whatever lay before us was more than just a simple curiosity. While we stood there, Lisa pulled out her phone, capturing the moments unfolding before us. Other hikers, drawn by curiosity, gathered at a safe distance, whispering among themselves nervously. "Do you really think this is safe?" one of them asked, glancing our way. I shrugged, not entirely sure myself. We all shared a nervous energy, waiting to see what Blake might uncover about this mysterious creature. The atmosphere was electric with suspense. The trail felt strangely quiet, and I paused to scan the surroundings. Usually, squirrels would scurry or birds would chatter, but the air was still. "Is it just me, or is everything too quiet?" I asked, glancing at Lisa. She nodded, her own eyes flicking around. Yeah, it feels like the whole park is holding its breath, she replied. We shared a look, both unsettled by the eerie lack of life. Though I'd started the day confidently, a nagging unease crept in now. Blake was still examining the creature, his steps slow and deliberate as he circled it. Lisa watched with anxious curiosity, whispering, "What's he looking for?" I just shook my head, doing my best to stay calm despite the feeling growing in my gut. The air seemed to thrum with tension, each second stretching longer. A sudden caw from a nearby crow made everyone jump. "Wow!" Blake yelped, his hand instinctively going to his belt, ready for anything. Lisa and I exchanged nervous chuckles, glancing at Blake. "Relax, it's just a bird," I said, trying to lighten the mood. But the moment of surprise hung in the air, making us more aware of how tense the situation was. Just then, Dr. Carter joined us, her expression all business. She stepped up to Blake, giving him a firm nod before focusing on the scene. The gravity of her presence added weight to the situation. "Let's take a closer look," she said, examining the creature with a trained eye. Her composure seemed to ground everyone, reassuring us that we had the right people handling this odd discovery. Dr. Carter crouched close to the creature, while Lisa's curiosity won over her initial fear. She followed the doctor's movements carefully, her gaze fixed on the odd details. "What do you see?" she asked softly. "Something interesting on its back," Carter replied, focused on her work. The enigma continued to draw us in, each of us invested in solving it without fully understanding what lay before us. The creature's eyes fluttered for a second, turning all our attention its way. Carter calmly held up a hand, signaling us to stay quiet. We obeyed, hearts beating a little faster now. As we watched, the eyes stayed closed, but the brief moment of movement left everyone on edge. "Did it just move?" Lisa whispered, her voice filled with wonder. "I think so," I replied, equally spellbound. A loud snap of a branch nearby spun us around, eyes scanning the forest. In the now quiet forest, even minor noises seemed amplified. Through the underbrush, I noticed small footprints leading away from where the creature lay. "Look, over there," I pointed out to Blake. His gaze followed mine, curious about what else could be out there lurking under the cover of trees. Keeping order was becoming tougher, with more onlookers gathering. Blake mentioned setting a perimeter to manage the crowd. "Keep back, folks. Give us space to work," he called in his firm ranger voice. The sheer number of people standing around added to the tension, their conversations mixing into a worried hum. Lisa moved closer, listening as speculation about this creature and its origins filled the air. Blake stayed composed, directing the growing audience as best he could. "Please don't crowd the area," his voice carried authority. Meanwhile, Carter was deep into examining the creature, her pen scribbling fast on her notepad. "What's she writing?" Lisa wondered aloud. "Probably documenting her observations," I guessed. The crowd listened on, keeping their attention divided between Carter's note-taking and Blake's instructions. Without missing a beat, Dr. Carter began meticulously collecting samples from around the creature. Her movements showed her experience, careful and sure. Blake nodded at her diligence, reassured by her focus. Lisa looked on, fascinated. "She knows what she's doing," Lisa said admiringly. "I hope it tells us something," I replied, eager for any clue that could explain this bizarre situation. Everyone stayed attentive, waiting for any revelations. Lisa moved closer, holding her phone up. "I can't miss this," she said, snapping a few shots of the creature. Blake threw an arm out, keeping the growing crowd from getting too near. "Back up, folks," he ordered, his voice firm. Lisa turned to Blake. "Think anyone will believe this?" she asked, her eyes glinting with excitement. "Stay focused, Lisa," Blake replied, still keeping onlookers at bay. The creature didn't budge, its eyes shut. I wandered around, hoping to find more clues. The forest was eerily silent except for the occasional rustle. "What exactly are we looking for?" Lisa questioned, curiosity piqued. I shrugged, glancing at the strange sight before us. Anything, I guess, I replied, eyes scanning the area around the creature. It was like a puzzle we couldn't piece together just yet. Just then, a squirrel dashed across, disappearing into the trees in a flash. "Did you see that?" Lisa pointed, amused by the sudden appearance. The wind picked up, rustling the leaves like a whisper all around us. The scene was both busy and strangely calm, a natural rhythm of the woods. We kept looking around, trying to spot anything unusual, besides the creature, of course. Blake's radio buzzed to life once more, pulling him back into action mode. "Investigate further," the voice instructed. "We're on it," Blake replied, nodding to himself. I stepped carefully over twigs and leaves, my boots crunching softly. "Let's hope we find something soon," I said, glancing at Lisa. Blake gave a tight-lipped smile, his focus back on the mysterious creature. It was clear he was taking this seriously. I could feel the buzz of anticipation among the gathered group. Everyone seemed poised, waiting for something to happen. Dr. Carter was particularly focused, scribbling notes in a small book she carried. "Any theories, Dr. Carter?" Lisa asked. "Not yet," Carter replied without looking up. The energy in the air felt charged, each second feeling longer than the last as we all waited for answers. Lisa's imagination ran wild as we stood there. "What if it's part of a myth? Like those stories you hear, you know?" she speculated, eyes lighting up. She painted vivid stories in her mind about the creature. "Think it's connected to park legends?" I prompted. Lisa chuckled. "I mean, it could be," she said, glancing around for a sign. Her ideas were far-fetched but entertaining. Blake clapped his hands, bringing us all back to the present. "All right, let's not jump to conclusions," he cautioned, breaking the spell of Lisa's musings. "We need facts, not guesses." His words were clear, his tone steady. "Yeah, you're right," Lisa agreed sheepishly. We all shifted our focus back to the creature, Blake's reminder helping us stay grounded in the unfolding mystery before us. Dr. Carter nodded in agreement with Blake. "Practical is best," she said, pausing her notes for a moment. The air grew quieter, as if even the animals were listening. Her nod towards Blake was a show of her support for his methodical approach. Everyone took a pause, reflecting on the yet unsolved mystery of the creature lying in the forest clearing. Silence had a way of stretching moments out. Without warning, the creature stirred slightly. "Whoa!" Lisa exclaimed, catching herself from giving a full-on squeal. The rest of us shifted on our feet, surprised by the movement. "Did that just happen?" Blake asked, eyes widening. "Seems like it," I replied, scanning the creature for more activity. Lisa gave a nervous laugh, trying to calm her nerves. Each twitch or turn felt like a new chapter unfolding. As the sun dipped lower, shadows stretched across the ground. "Stay calm, folks," Dr. Carter advised, her hand motioning for calm. "We need to keep our heads clear." Blake nodded, glancing at his watch, noting how quickly time was passing. Lisa and I exchanged glances, acknowledging the shadowy change in atmosphere. The scene was painted in shades of ominous grey as daylight continued to disappear. Anticipation sat heavy on us all as we waited. Ranger Blake adjusted his hat, keeping his eyes on the creature. "Think it'll move again?" Lisa asked out loud, glancing at me for reassurance. I shrugged, focusing on what lay ahead. The evening air was cool now. Every breath we took was a reminder of the tense wait. "Just stay ready," Blake murmured, his voice steady. As darkness thickened, our vision grew blurry. "Here," Blake said, switching on his flashlight. The beam cut through the night, casting long shadows around us. "Better," Lisa nodded, grateful. We could now clearly see the creature lying still as it had all this time. The beam flickered, but Blake adjusted it, keeping the scene lit. The flashlight seemed like our only weapon against the overwhelming dark. Under the light, the creature's shaggy fur sparkled in an odd kind of way. Lisa wrapped her arms around herself, not just against the bite of the night air, but from the strangeness of what we were witnessing. "What do you think it's made of?" she asked, her voice low. I had no answer. Each shiny strand looked as perplexing as the last. We all shivered, feeling a chill unrelated to the temperature. Dr. Carter joined us again, holding some small devices. She frowned. Faint chemical traces, she explained, showing Blake and Lisa the readings. So it's not entirely natural, Blake commented, looking at her findings. We all exchanged puzzled looks, each theory fading as quickly as it formed. Whatever this thing was, it was becoming clear we had stumbled onto something far from ordinary. The mystery was deepening quickly. Blake's radio crackled to life again, and he stepped aside to answer it. He frowned as he listened. Reinforcements are delayed, he informed us, his tone grave. A hush fell over the group, disappointment in the air. What now? Lisa asked. I had no answer. Around us, whispers floated like songs of doubt, questioning what we had all stumbled across. The wait seemed like it would stretch indefinitely. Despite the creeping tension, some people began to drift away, unwilling to wait any longer. Can't stay forever, one muttered, shaking his head before leaving. The rest of us stayed, glued to the scene by some unseen force. Lisa turned to me and said, I feel like we can't just leave this unsolved. I nodded in agreement. The creature held a strange power over us, like a puzzle we were meant to solve. As others filed away, I forced my mind to stay sharp. That meant paying attention to everything, no matter how small. Blake, Lisa and I shared a wordless understanding that we were here for the long haul. We need answers, Blake said, reading my thoughts. We all stayed focused, waiting with anticipation for whatever was coming, knowing it felt close. Each breath felt charged with more suspense than the last. Curiosity got the better of me, and I stepped forward. The creature lay just out of reach, and I crouched low, pulling away a few leaves near its side. The forest floor was damp against my hands. What was it hiding? I brushed gently, moving slowly so as not to miss anything. The night was still around me, only the faint shifting of trees in the wind. Shock jolted through me as my fingernails caught on something unexpected, a seam. Lisa, I whispered harshly, calling her over. I pulled the furry covering aside just enough to see more metal hidden beneath. What's that? She asked, crouching beside me. It's a zipper, I said, disbelief coating my words. Our eyes met, flooded with confusion. The creature wasn't as it seemed. This was no ordinary animal in the woods. I waved Lisa closer as the realization settled in. Look at this, I urged, pointing at my discovery. Other onlookers soon gathered around us, their expressions shifting from intrigue to shock. What does it mean? Lisa asked, peering closer. It's like we're in some elaborate hoax, I suggested, half laughing at the irony. This revelation shot through the crowd like a ripple, each face marked with astonishment. Blake turned and gave me a sharp look as he examined the peculiar sight before us. Dr. Carter, meanwhile, was scribbling notes like mad, her keen eyes picking up details unnoticed by the rest. See these tracks? Blake commented, pointing at the ground. They don't look right. Dr. Carter nodded, giving him a quick glance. Not typical forest signs, that's certain, she added, jotting in her notebook. We stood clustered, caught in a whirl of questions about whether the creature was real or not. Could someone be pulling a prank? Lisa blurted out. Blake reached for his radio, explaining the situation. I need to check if any hoaxes are being reported, he said, as he radioed in, hoping for clear answers. Around us, murmurs rose, each person with a different theory. The discovery of the seam turned everything on its head. Blake rubbed his chin thoughtfully. This changes things, he said, staring at the creature. We all hung around, discussing what this could mean. Maybe it's a costume, Lisa suggested, eyes fixed on the scene. The gravity of our find left us grappling with the bizarre nature of the situation, each thought adding to the complex picture. Lisa crossed her arms, deep in thought. Who could have set this up and why? She mused aloud. Blake, on the other hand, was busy inspecting the scene, looking for more oddities. He moved cautiously, keen on finding more inconsistencies. Keep an eye out, he muttered, focused on his search. Lisa glanced at me, a mixture of excitement and confusion on her face. Determined, I followed those tiny footprints that snaked along the trail. The woods loomed around me, with shadows growing as the light began to fade. Where do they lead? I wondered aloud, half expecting an answer from the quiet forest. The prints were faint but clear upon the soft earth, guiding me further into the unknown, away from the group's small gathering. Dr. Carter took charge, gathering everyone to explain what we'd found. Her voice was calm and methodical. "We've got something unusual here," she said, keeping everyone updated. Meanwhile, I trailed the footprints, which kept leading me deeper into the forest. The others were like a small distant hum behind me, reminding me I wasn't alone. But as I moved further, it felt like just me and the trail. Slowly, I pieced together the clues as I walked. Each step seemed to peel back layers of the mystery. Broken branches and scattered leaves hinted someone had passed hurriedly before. It was enough to suggest a path, leaving me curious and eager to see where it all led. The forest felt alive with secrets, whispering gently as I moved through it. The sense of calm from earlier was gone, replaced by an urgent need to know what lay ahead. Blake appeared behind, his flashlight sweeping through the trees, offering guidance. "Got anything?" he called out, close enough to hear the tension in his voice. "Not yet," I replied, my eyes still searching. The illumination was a boon, providing comfort against the enveloping darkness surrounding us. Dr. Carter urged the group to remain cautious, and her voice cut through the rising chatter among the hikers. "Don't jump to conclusions," she warned, knowing how quickly theories can cloud judgment. The chill of the night air wrapped around us, a constant reminder that it was getting late. Blake and I continued to probe our surroundings, aware that every step might uncover something new. Suddenly, I stumbled upon a small pile of odd items, discarded props by the looks of it. Clumps of spray adhesive and a pair of gloves lay abandoned along the narrow path. "Hey, check this out," I called back to Blake, who caught up quickly. "What the heck?" he muttered, inspecting the pieces. Finding these items felt like another piece of this wildly strange puzzle right before us. Blake knelt down, examining the collection of props deeply. He tried to piece together what these strange clues could mean. "These look staged," Blake muttered, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. Lisa joined us, clipboard in hand, jotting down notes quickly. "The trails. They lead everywhere but nowhere right," she pointed out, drawing lines in the dirt with her sneaker. We all nodded, compelled by the scene that seemed crafted with purpose yet unclear to us all. As if drawn by some silent call, more hikers began gathering around us. "Find anything interesting?" one asked, eyes glinting with curiosity. The air buzzed with the energy of the growing crowd, each person craning their neck to catch a glimpse of what we had found. The whispers grew louder, a mix of excitement and disbelief floating through the group. It started feeling more like a spectacle than a mysterious discovery. Driven by the urge to uncover more, I continued my search, scouring the forest floor for answers. Each new twig broken, each leaf crunched underfoot, seemed to lead further into the mystery. It felt like an unsolved puzzle before us, both fascinating and frustrating. Every piece found only hinted at more beneath the surface, shadowed by the forest, the complete picture just beyond reach, yet close enough to feel. Standing from his crouched position, Blake began scanning the immediate area once more, looking for anything that might give us insight. He seemed to put the pieces of his mental puzzle together aloud. "This has got to be a setup," he concluded, his eyes catching sight of a faint trail leading further into the trees. Blake nodded towards the path, where maybe more secrets lay hidden. Dr. Carter began rummaging through the various items scattered across the ground. "They match! Look!" she declared, matching faux fur bits to the creature's appearance. The gathered crowd fell silent, watching as she sorted evidence calmly. Overhead, the twilight hour dimmed the forest with ever-deepening shadows, and a flickering light from Blake's flashlight danced upon the trees. The night was settling around us, cloaking the mystery further in darkness. I wandered off the main trail a bit, following the faint path under Blake's direction. My eyes caught on what appeared out of nowhere. A camera. Hidden expertly among leaves, its lens pointed directly at the path we'd just traversed. "Blake!" I called, motioning him over. He jogged to my side, arriving with Lisa not far behind. We all stared, the camera's red light blinking stealthily among the green. Blake knelt beside the hidden camera, taking in the wires that snaked and blinked. "Someone set this up," he noted, turning the camera slightly. "Why is it pointed at the trail?" Lisa puzzled, her brow furrowing as she observed the equipment. "To get reactions, I bet," Blake answered, his voice tinged with the authority of someone who has pieced together part of the puzzle. The realization had us all thinking about intentions behind the setup. With the hidden camera in sight, Lisa stepped forward, eager to examine it closer. "Why go through all this trouble?" she wondered aloud, trying to fathom the mind behind the acts. The props and planned positioning seemed aimed to shock unsuspecting hikers. The pieces started to link together, but questions about who and why still lingered, tantalizing in the evening air. Everyone stood around, united by this crafted mystery. All of us stood quietly, the forest eerily silent despite the scene before us. The thought of a setup, the manufacturing of chaos amid such a peaceful setting, hung heavy. "It's like nature's own prank," Blake chuckled, breaking the quiet. His theory that maybe some online creator had gone too far began taking root among us. As the wind gently rustled branches overhead, the idea seemed almost possible, even plausible. The more we analysed the items and peculiar creature, the entire setup seemed to parallel a child's prank, but on a larger, stranger scale. It was all like a staged spectacle, blowing simple mischief into something grand. Over at the Ranger headquarters, chatter of hoaxed scenarios reportedly swirled with validity, Blake informed us. It was both frustrating and fascinating, this wild game played out across the park's quiet, shadowed paths. Dr. Carter let out a sigh, her expression a mix of relief and slight irritation as she spoke. "Public safety is our priority," she emphasized, looking directly at Blake. He nodded in agreement. "Yeah, we need to ensure everyone knows there's no real danger here." Lisa, still buzzing from the excitement, couldn't help but grin. "At least we learned something today." Dr. Carter chuckled. "That much is true." With the mystery solved, we quickly packed up and prepared to leave the site. Blake was meticulous, making sure everything was documented for his report. "Gotta make sure we have all the details," he said, jotting down notes. Lisa helped gather our things, her lively chatter now filled with relief. As we left, Blake filed the report, ensuring the incident was properly recorded for future reference. Back at the park entrance, Dr. Carter was already on the phone, coordinating with authorities to prevent future pranks. "We can't have people doing this again," she stressed. Lisa, now relaxed from the day's excitement, joked, "This wasn't the hiking trip I expected." We all shared a laugh, thinking about our unexpected adventure. Meanwhile, Dr. Carter outlined new measures to ensure something like this wouldn't happen again. As we stood there, the weight of the day started to lift. "Feels good to have things sorted," Lisa said, breaking the comfortable silence. The night seemed more peaceful, the earlier tension now a distant memory. Blake nodded. "Yeah, it's nice to wrap it up." We all took a quiet moment, letting the resolution truly settle among us, enjoying a rare pause amid the day's whirlwind. Flashlights bobbed in the dark as we and the remaining hikers made our way back to the main trail. With each step, conversations flowed, sharing our own angles of the story, each person's retelling punctuated with laughter. "I still can't believe it," one hiker said, shaking their head in disbelief. The sound of footsteps echoed, creating a comforting rhythm with the shared stories keeping the atmosphere light and cheerful. Our trek back took on a different feel, an unexpected journey from the bewildering events earlier. Blake led the way, his flashlight a beacon among us. Each path we took felt more familiar, more welcoming after such a surprising afternoon detour. "Thanks, Blake," Lisa said, her voice carrying gratitude. "Anytime. Glad I could help," he replied, guiding us steadily. The journey home felt more like an adventure shared than an ordeal. Dr. Carter reassured everyone that new safety measures would be put in place to prevent such incidents. "We'll make sure this doesn't repeat," she promised firmly, her professional demeanor comforting. As we all headed out of the park, Blake seconded, "Everyone's safety is our priority." With these assurances, we left the park behind, our experience that day leaving us with plenty of memories and a newfound sense of caution. As the last of the hikers left, the story of the day promised to become a future tale, a reminder to tread carefully. The experience urged renewed efforts to ensure park safety, highlighting unexpected twists in a world often taken for granted. Blake shared, "It's a lesson in watching for the unexpected." We all nodded, the event etched firmly in our memories, a mix of awe and awareness. Despite the fear and uncertainty initially sparked, a camaraderie naturally developed among us. "Feels like we went through a lot together," Lisa noted with a smile. The ordeal taught us to move with caution, be it in nature or life itself. Each of us remained somewhat on edge, yet there was an undercurrent of understanding and respect forged through shared experiences and appreciation for the unpredictable side of adventures. As our feet finally stepped off the trail and onto the parking lot, a mix of relief and intrigue washed over me. "We'll have new stories to tell," I mused, looking back toward the darkened woods. The day ended not as we expected, but richer in experiences, each of us taking away something special from our own forest encounter.